beautiful thank you to the food services team, your entire team, and from the moment you walked in, we were escorted here, so we really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know me, is anyone new to ACHE tonight and this is your first event? Well, welcome. Always glad to see new faces. Our current president, Harula Norden, she couldn't be here tonight, so I am the fill-in as the immediate past president. I'm Jenna Merlucci, and I'm the vice president of Heart and Vascular Services for Broward Health. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our chapter, and then I'll introduce our moderator, and she will introduce our panel. So these are our 2024 corporate sponsors. We are very grateful to our sponsors. Our chapter could not function and run without our sponsors. So I'm going to run through them very quickly. Our platinum sponsors are Airmark, Beck, Florida Blue, Lean Toss, Memorial Healthcare System, and Nova Southeastern University, Wayne Huizenga School of Business. Our gold sponsors are Baptist Health, Baxter, Broward Health, Cano Health, FAU, their Executive Masters of Healthcare Administration program, Nicholas Children's Hospital, Plant Moran, UHealth, University of Miami, Herbert Business School, their Department of Health Management and Policy, Vitas Healthcare, and Wellington Regional. Again, thank you, Wellington Regional. Barry University, Health Sciences and Public Health Programs, Cleveland Clinic, FIU, the College of Nursing and Health Sciences, Jackson Health System, Miami-Dade College, and South Florida Healthcare and Hospital Association, and our media partners is the Broward County Medical Association, and our supporters, of course, Charles, the source of all news, South Florida Hospital News and Report, and then the Dade County Medical Association. So thank you all. So a little bit about ACHE. Our mission is to advance our members in healthcare leadership excellence. And so this is our 2024 Board of Directors. It is a totally volunteer board. Everyone has their day jobs, and they come together to bring you these programs and networking events and beautiful panels. So if there are any board members in the room, please stand up and wave. We thank you for your service. I see a few tonight. So this is ACHE at a national level. There's over 48,000 members, so it's a huge network, 76 chapters, 8.8 million different means of communication, and web visitors, so a really big network that, that becomes small. Our South Florida chapter is the 9th largest in the nation, so go South Florida. We have over 1,200 members. That always continues to grow. We have 140 fellows. Anyone become a fellow this year in the room? Congratulations. It's a very prestigious, and if anyone is working towards their fellowship, there's a lot of people in the room who will be willing to help you. Our student members, 266 student members. Any students in the room? Thank you for coming out. We love our students to come and get involved, and over 4,000 LinkedIn followers. It's the best means of communication. If you do not follow us on LinkedIn, please do. So what do you get out of your local chapter? You get to network, the education events, and there's just many things to get involved with. So continue to be involved. You can join today. Anyone in the room, the board members can help you if you're interested in that. And we talked a little bit about the fellow credential, but it's something that you'll always be proud to have, and it really shows your dedication to healthcare leadership. So again, follow us on LinkedIn. That's our website. And our next event is a fun event. It's a networking event. It's going to be May 2nd, and it is at Top Golf in Pompano Beach. So It is centrally located. We thank you to those who traveled far tonight. Our chapter spread a big geographical area from Miami to the Treasure Coast, so we try to hit all areas. So thank you to the ones who it's close to tonight, who come all the way down to Broward and Miami, and thank you to those who traveled tonight. We really try to reach everybody. This is for the end. Do not take your survey yet because we haven't had the program yet. So it is my privilege to introduce Ashley Abendondolo. She is the Senior Director of Strategic Growth and Development at Memorial Healthcare System. She was a previous fellow at Memorial Healthcare System, and she serves as our Student Services Chair. It's a very, very great role, and this year, her along with Marla did our statewide student case competition last weekend, which was a huge success, and it's the first time that we involved the entire state and not just the South Florida area. So take it away with our program.
Thanks, Jenna. I'm super excited to be here tonight. I'm honestly pretty honored to be up here with these three individuals. Like Jenna said, Ashley Abendondolo. It's an honor to be your moderator tonight on a very, very important topic. I don't think any of us would be where we are without great mentors, and so tonight is all about that discussion and that conversation. So first I'm going to introduce our wonderful panelists. So immediately to my left here, I have Aurelio Fernandez, and I really don't think that he needs any introduction. But I will have our panelists do their own introduction and make it a little fun. I am going to ask you guys to tell the audience one fun fact that they don't know about you from your bio when we pass it to you guys too. But Aurelio is the executive in residence with Broward Health, and prior to that, he was the president and chief executive officer of Memorial Healthcare System. Aurelio has contributed more to South Florida healthcare than probably anybody I know, and probably anybody, more than anybody a lot of us know in the room. So definitely honored to be up here with you, Aurelio. You want to give the audience a little overview of your background?
Well, thank you all for coming, and I need to applaud Elizabeth's presentation because she's got an awful lot of energy, and you can tell she's very proud of what she does. And that is one of the ways that gets you up in the ladder. And like Ashley said, I don't think any of us would be here if we didn't have mentors leading us the way. And personally, I started out in finance, and I was the CFO at a hospital down in Miami, and one of the executives at the time, an older man who was in his 60s, said, you need to get out of finance and get into operations. And went back to school, got my master's in health services administration, and the rest is history. Now, having a background in finance did help because you do know the numbers, and with change, you have to adjust to the change, and obviously it's going to have a financial impact. But the two types of mentors, the ones that see something in you and they want to help you grow, and then those that you see something that warrants your attention and you want to help them grow. And hopefully we'll address those issues tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that introduction. Next up is Rahat. Rahat is the Associate Administrator of HCA Kendall, and I'm super excited to be with him. He just served as a mentor to our student case competition teams. And so every year as the students develop their case, they're also paired with a mentor that they get to run ideas by, that really get to help walk them through their case presentation. And so I'm thankful, one, thank you so much for doing that for us. And two, I'm excited to be up here because we're also, personal friends and colleagues. So, Rahat, you want to introduce yourself to the team?
Good evening, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure being here with all of you today. My name is Rahat Verma, as Ashley mentioned. I have the honor of serving as the Associate Administrator at HCA Florida Kendall Hospital. We are a 447-bed acute care hospital in Miami-Dade, accredited stroke center, accredited birth center, and one of two level 1 trauma centers in Miami-Dade. So very busy shop, and I've learned a lot in my last 2 years there. Very grateful to Ashley and the entire HCAG board for having us here on a topic that is so important. As Ashley and Aurelio both mentioned, I think we are all products of mentorship and coaching, and we would not be here where we are today without those folks that dedicated time, energy, without any expectation of getting anything back. And I think that is something that really drives me. Hope to share a little bit more about that today. Ashley said to say a fun fact, so I'll share one. Something that really at the core essence growing up, learning from my parents, my grandparents, something that really struck with me was understanding human behavior and connection. And I studied psychology in undergrad and then ended up going and getting a master's in healthcare administration. But I really closely observed my grandfather growing up, and he was a world traveler. He, over his lifetime, traveled to over 100 countries. And I made a goal when I was very young that by the time I turned 30, I wanted to go visit 50 countries and just understand what life was like in different places, try to pick up the language, try to learn the cuisine. I'm a huge foodie, and just, see what life was outside of my comfort zone. And it's still not there. A couple countries left to go, but a little bit of time left, and I hope I'll hit it there. But again, it goes back to human connection, and I think that's what mentorship is based off of, right? That relationship of just getting to know people and then being able to take it forward. So looking forward to discussing further with all of you, but thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Amazing. I learn something new about you every single time we talk. That is awesome and very impressive. I hope you reach all 50. I know you will. Last but definitely not least, Patrick Briantes. Patrick is the Senior Vice President of Service Lines for Memorial Healthcare System. And I am lucky enough to be mentored every single day by this man right here because he is my boss. And so I'm super excited to be up here with him. Patrick has taught me more in the last 6 months of reporting to him than I could have ever imagined. And it's really, really an honor to be up here with you tonight and, get to you to share with the audience everything you share with me every day. So, Patrick, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. How many of you have mentors today? How many of you have been mentees? How many of you know somebody who needs a mentor? and as all leaders, mentorship, coaching, all comes in what we do. My name is Patrick Brilliantes. I've been with Memorial for about 2 years today. And I came from a market up in the Midwest in Michigan and was brought down here. I'll blame some of it on you, Aurelio. Brought the role into place, but it's been a privilege to really work with Aurelio, the executive team, and being down in South Florida. My scope is service lines. I've privileged to work every day with Meredith Feinberg, who just built a beautiful cancer center in Memorial West. If you haven't seen it, come see it. Gorgeous. I get to work with Ashley every day in the strategic growth. But it's the privilege of working with great leaders, which drives me every day. She talks about me mentoring her, but as you all know, you learn a lot from the people you work with. I was talking to somebody here about pharmacy. I work with pharmacy too. And the young lady's like, I don't understand what they even talk about in pharmacy. I work with pharmacists every day, and I have no idea. So you really count on the leaders and the expertise of the people you work with every day to advance what we all want to do, advance care for our patients. Oh, one fun thing about me, none of you know me, so I would say I played in a college rock band during my time at Michigan City University. I played bass guitar.
What? Boss, I have no idea. Well, we did forget a fun fact from my friend earlier.
It's not a fun fact, but something interesting. I don't have any hobbies. I never had any hobbies. It was always work. So I retired in 2020, and I said, what do I do next? And I just couldn't take it anymore, and I went back to work. My wife kicked me out of the house, and it's the best thing I've done. So the message here is find a hobby. It's rough when you're retired and you have nothing else to do.
I love that. Your wife was agreeing with you the whole time. You were saying you had no hobbies. Well, with that, we're going to jump right into tonight's program. I want to kind of start with each of you guys sharing a story about a mentor that impacted your career trajectory. And I know I'm going totally off script, sorry. But I would love to start there. Maybe share a story about a mentor you had that really kind of shaped the trajectory of your career, really helped you, taught you a lesson that you still remember today. We'll start down at the end with Patrick, and we'll move to Aurelio.
I'm going to go back a decade and a half or so. One of my mentors one of my main mentors, I'll say, was a CNO that I worked with up in Michigan. And I remember being new into the career, working in post-acute. And one of the things, I remember applying for a job at one of the hospitals in the system for like a marketing manager or strategy manager. I didn't get it. And I was really, really upset and frustrated. Why did I not get that? Because I really wanted to expand my skill set out of operations. And the CNO, who really didn't have any direct connect with me, took it upon her to say, you know what, I'm going to give you some projects, even though I'm doing my current job, but I'm going to help you build a DME center. I'm going to help you build I'm going to actually help you build a hospice facility with 20 beds. And so it gave me some things like project management, project development, and going from being devastated, not getting a role where I really wanted to do some program development, and having her take me in and say, hey, you know what, we'll find something for you to do, really drove me to spending my time in service line development.
So I'll share a story. While I was in grad school, I was looking at opportunities post-grad, and there was a company that stood out to me at the time, a company on Boyd, Skate Healthcare. They had come and pitched to us a few times as students, and me being a South Florida native, living in Minnesota at the time, it was very appealing to come back into the warm weather, escape the negative 30 that I was dealing with over there. But partly just seeing the impact that they had as a company, as a large scale, being the largest provider of hospital services across the country. It was very appealing, but I wanted to understand more about the company, the culture, and I reached out to an alum who I had built a relationship with during my first 2 years there, named Isaiah, and he was the COO of an HCA facility out in Los Angeles. And he said, Rahat, I will bring you here with me, come and be my administrative intern. He said, I can't promise that I'll be able to get this position budgeted, because it's not. But if you can come and find a way to spend 3-4 months out here and figure out the cost of living in expensive Los Angeles, I promise you I will give you the greatest experience you will ever have. And I took him up on it. I moved to Los Angeles, packed up everything, shipped my car, did everything, was fully committed. And the first day I got there, he said, go and learn everything. Go and touch every department. Go work the tray line in the kitchen. Go learn how to terminally clean a room with environmental. Go shadow every type of surgeon, not just the fun stuff, not just the neuros and the traumas, but go and see everything and learn the culture. Learn the people, learn what the people want. And it was a transition over time, different market, different culture, but that was my goal, learning the people. And I took that very personally, and one day happened. It was 8 p.m., I was still there. It was a Friday night, and I was with our food and nutrition team. We were rounding on a patient, and it was a terminally ill cancer patient, around 75 years old, and it was her dream to see her grandchildren get married, and it was scheduled for a few weeks away, but based off of what we had learned at the time, it didn't seem possible. So I looked at our food and nutrition team, they looked at each other, they pulled in the nursing team, they pulled in the respiratory therapist, anybody that they could see, and they said, Rahat, you asked us early on to learn about our culture and what we do here, and they said, let's put on a wedding. So we went, and a few people drove out, they picked up wedding attire, our food and nutrition team started baking a cake, we put together a whole party, and within 2 hours, we had a full wedding. We asked our chaplain to come in, and it was incredible. And that is the moment that I learned this is the culture that I was looking for the whole time. It doesn't matter the city that you're in, it doesn't matter what your role is, but the people, the energy behind it, and that is what sold me to join the company I'm with today. And if it wasn't for that mentor bringing me out there, I would have never experienced that, and I don't know if I would have had the opportunities that I've had after that. So I'm incredibly grateful to him, and I think the biggest thing I learned is sometimes you have to be willing to take risks. A lot of times we think that life is going to go exactly as planned, and very rarely does that happen, but I think there's so much beauty in that. So just giving ourselves the personal freedom to sway as life takes us, I think that has benefited me the most, and I'm very thankful for my mentors for teaching me that.
Nice story. Well, I started off by telling my initial journey. I used to be a CPA and Chief Financial Officer at a very young age at a hospital back in 1980, and I was hired to convert and implement a computer system. And there was a very influential man who says, you know, really, I think you should move out of finance and go into operations, and because I'm somewhat of a people person. And I did that. He says, the only thing you have to do is to go back to school and get your master's degree. So I did, and I went and got it at FIU and master's in health service administration. And he says, don't worry, we'll teach you how to go about it. And what Rahad had said about taking risks, you have to take risks. At that time, my wife had just delivered a baby. We were 2 young kids, having already 2 kids by that time. And it's scary, especially when you're in a new job. But somebody wanted to mentor me and say, this is what you're going to do, and I'll help you do it. And 40 some odd years later, this is 1981, 82, here I am, and we all at that time worked an awful lot. It's not like today where nobody likes to work. And you put in the hours. I had a very understanding wife that knew that I was the sole breadwinner, and she was taking care of the kids. So it was an understanding, it was a partnership. But the changing cultures that we see here today, I think if I was to give some advice, when you mentor people that go home at 5 o'clock, like Rahad said, he was working at 8 o'clock on a Friday at his age. That doesn't happen today. And that's why he is where he is today. So, and the other thing, and I'll share later, is being mentee, but you becoming a mentor of somebody. Because I think it works both ways.
Wow, those were really incredible stories, and you know, it's interesting to hear you guys talk about things that may have happened many years ago, but you're still able to recall it like it happened yesterday, right? Because that's just how impactful mentorship is. I'll share a quick personal story, and then we'll jump into our questions. I had a great mentor. Many of you may know her by the name of Jen Connolly, aka Jen Rosati now. I was working for Jen, and she called me one day, and this is kind of on the comment that Rahat made about taking risks, and I really feel like mentors are really, really good at pushing us outside of our comfort zone, right? Making sure that they're looking at us from the outside of how they see us, that we may not even see that potential in ourselves yet, but they see that in us. And so she called me one day, and I remember I was working for her, and she goes, you need to call Peter Powers at Regional and ask him for a job. And I was like, what? I'm like, I'm working for you. Like, you're gonna ask me to leave your team? And she was like, yeah, you need to call him. I know you want to be in the hospital. I know you want to kind of get involved in operations more. You need to call him and ask him for a job. And she's like, I'm not giving you an option. You just call him. And I was like, okay, great. Yes, boss. So I called him and I asked for a job, and that's how I ended up working for Peter. And you never know what's gonna happen and who's gonna push you outside of your comfort zone. I was very happy. She's a great boss. If you know her, you love her. She was a wonderful boss, and I didn't want to go anywhere. but she had my best intention in mind, and I think that's what mentors bring to the table for us. So on that note, to anybody in the audience, who raised their hand about who's looking for a mentor? Anybody? Okay, a few of us. So if somebody is looking for a mentor, what advice do you guys have for finding a mentor? Where do you even start? Anybody in particular want to take that one? We'll pass it.
There's a couple venues you can go. You know, ACHE, they have a formal mentorship program, I believe, and I participated a decade ago or so. So, you know, formal associations, I think within your organization, and Memorial has a really good mentorship program that I participated every year in the system I worked before. I said, I'm participating, you know, encouraging others to do that as well. I think so that's the formal path. There's also the informal path, and I think that's more powerful in mentorship, is finding someone with the similar values that you believe in interests, in area, a likability, and reaching out to others to learn what they do, how they got there, you know, what are your challenges, and bringing some regular cadence to dialogue. So, you know, right here, you probably have a selection of about 50 great mentors in this room. And I think anyone here would be willing to help guide each and every one of us if asked. So in networking events, don't be shy, reach out to others. There's a lot of great leaders out there who's willing to help.
Absolutely, completely agree with what Patrick said. It all starts with taking initiative, and I know it can be scary at times. We've all been there, our first networking event, you know, deer in headlights, but trust me, once you do it, once you shake off the nerves, you realize everyone is human and everybody came from somewhat similar backgrounds, and even if they didn't, they're here and they have been somewhat of an intention of learning about people. So just break the ice and go for it. I know there's folks from very different levels of careers here. There's early careers, mid-careers, and late careers. For the early careers, especially the students, I'll say take full advantage being a student. Take full advantage of your organizations, the educational institutions that you're in, because there's so many valuable resources. I know being a student, sometimes you're so focused on just checking the boxes and graduating and surviving, right? But there's so much there between your alumni, between your faculty, so take advantage. These events are amazing. I try not to miss one, whether, you know, me living in Kendall, whether it's here, whether it's Broward. Again, it's about taking initiative at the end of the day, and trust me, it is so rewarding seeing those faces, building those relationships over time. Just coming back from Congress a few weeks ago in Chicago, you haven't ever been there, take the chance to go. Next year will be in Houston, and just the wide variety of folks that come from different backgrounds that, you know, have similar interests. That's so valuable. And the last thing I'll say about mentorship is I think focus on the values, like Patrick said. I think there's definitely, you know, a lot of interest in finding folks that are in our career space that can help us develop our career, but mentorship doesn't stop at that. Mentorship is about finding people that you relate to with similar value sets that will help you grow as a person, professionally and personally. And a lot of us focus on the professional growth, and that is important, but make sure that you're developing yourself as a person too, because there's so much to learn out there. So that would be my advice.
Thanks. And I think you also need to find someone you want to emulate to be that person. You know, like the old commercial, I want to be like Michael Jordan. There's only one Michael Jordan. But you need to find somebody that you really want to emulate in their career, and you find out what was their path and how it's going to get there. And I would venture to say that 90% of the times, they will find an interest to help you develop your skills and how to get there. And the easiest way is to get somebody within your organization. That way you stay within that network. Going outside the network, it becomes that much more difficult. But these types of events are very helpful, because you tend to learn how folks are moving around. And at the end of the day, it's all relationships. Okay? And networking is an imperative. Those who do not network do not move ahead. And healthcare is a major industry. in South Florida. And when I say healthcare, it crosses all lines. From hospital, we all want to be in a hospital, but you have insurance products, you have ambulatory surgical centers, you have managed care plans, you have a variety of options to right? I've been very fortunate to have worked in all of them. And you learn, and you take the risk. I think Rahad said about taking risk. Patrick took a huge risk when he moved his whole family from Michigan here. We all take risks. I would not been here today had I not taken the risk of leaving a very comfortable job to go into a hospital that had filed for Chapter 11 to implement a computer system that I had never done in my life. And it was tough. It was very difficult, but it happens. But at the end of the day, you can do anything you want to do as long as you set your mind to doing it. But you gotta work hard. You're gonna hear Steve say that word a lot, because anyone who thinks you're gonna make it at 8:30 to 5, it ain't gonna happen. Okay? 8 o'clock on a Friday night. All right? Starting out with somebody that's gonna help you from a nursing perspective. That's the way it works. And I know Jen Rosati, as Ashley said, talk about a hardworking person with 2 young kids, and she's there late at night working on the books. And Janice as well, 2 kids at home, and she's here tonight, and that's the way it works.
Yeah, I think that hard work is very important. You know, Marla and I talk to a lot of students, right? And that's the one advice we give them is nothing is given, it's earned, right? And so I think that, you know, if we work hard, we have the right people on our team, you know, that makes it just all the more better, right? And so, you know, you said something that I really liked, which was find somebody that you emulate, that you want to emulate, and find the leadership style that you know, the leader you want to be in that person. And I think that's really important as you're looking for a mentor. So what are maybe some questions that people can ask to find out like true leadership style of an individual that they want to be mentored by? Tell us a little bit about how you feel that leadership style out, and you know how you would recommend they go about that. We'll start with you, Aurelio. And we don't have to all answer this one, just Rahad and Aurelio if you want to.
Okay. Listen, I think the individual, first you need to be honest. If you don't know something, at least I'm that way. If I don't know something, I'll tell you, I just don't know. It's better to be honest and transparent at the front end than to try to make up, because when you're making up excuses, it comes through body language and you're doing backpedaling. Finding someone that you want to be when you get older is you respect the individual. You feel that they're accomplished, and you want to be like them. There's no question about it. And I feel it works the other way around as well. If I find somebody that warrants mentorship, because I think there's certain qualities and characteristics in that individual that they can do much better or differently than what they're doing, you approach them. How can I help you develop like the gentleman did for me? You don't belong in finance, you belong in management. I've had many people come to me and say, would you mentor me? And like I said, 90% or more, I will. And I will be helpful for the development. There's nothing more great. I promoted, I think, more people in South Florida in healthcare than I know. And there's certain characteristics, all of us have characteristics here that differentiate you from others. And if somebody's going to look, they're going to find that characteristic. You know, I've worked with Tony for many years, and he's got characteristics, and I've worked with him very well. He's a hardworking guy. He's got good ideas. He works with teams to make things happen. That's so important, to be able to work with others and not take all the credit for yourself. Give credit to those who deserve the credit. Okay, there's enough credit to go around. Don't be selfish. Give them yourself. That's what I would do.
I think that's great advice. I think as you're going to find a mentor, I think it all starts with getting to know somebody first, right? And I think it starts with mindset, going in. And you'll hear me say this a few times tonight, but it's very important to me, the difference between authentic relationships and transactional relationships, right? And I I think most of us, especially in the industry that we work in today, in workplace environments, it's very common to find transactional relationships. But I think if you can go and invest the energy and dedicate the effort that goes and takes that to an authentic relationship, caring about people deeply beyond expecting something back, I think that is the root of a good mentoring relationship. I think the next step is setting the expectations from day one and understanding if both parties have the leeway to endorse this commitment, because a mentorship relationship is a commitment. And I would like people to understand, because I've been on both sides of this, seeking a mentor and then providing mentorship. It's important to have that conversation, because as you look to somebody that you deeply admire and you want to emulate qualities to, you do have to have that very conversation of understanding and asking, is this something that can turn into a mentorship? And it's completely okay if it doesn't. You know, it's important to understand that you shouldn't have hurt feelings, because if somebody says they just don't have the time to dedicate to a mentorship right now, then I would greatly, as a mentee, appreciate knowing that, because if you are going to commit to it, there's a certain level of gravity that relationship holds. And for it to be treated significantly, both parties have to be fully bought in. So I think those would be the steps that I would take, is first getting to know somebody and then having those conversations of what that relationship works with. It could be a collegial friendship, or it could turn into something more, but setting the expectations from the get-go will help make sure that that stays on the right course.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great advice from both of you. I definitely think that there's certain qualities that both parties should be looking for. So, you know, taking this from the mentor point of view, thinking about the mentee relationship, what can a mentor look forward to getting out of a mentee-mentor relationship? So if someone is investing their time and energy into cultivating this mentorship and making sure that their mentee is getting as much out of it as they're putting in, what can the mentor hope to get out of it? Patrick?
That's great, because I think I've had maybe 9 or 10 mentees the last decade or so, and I before driving up here,
Still do.
geography, South Florida, east, west, water. That I thought about the different mentees I had. And it was such a cross section of. I had a few were IT, the last couple were nursing, 2 in HR, 1 in diversity, and 1 more, I can't remember where she came from. But the intention here is that I was able to interact with people in areas that I didn't work in. And there was absolutely no way I would have been able to experience what they experienced at that granular level from the day-to-day in their departments. And so one of the benefits of why I really appreciate mentorship programs is for myself to develop in areas I normally would not be exposed to. And I think there's so much to learn from those who are closer to the patient, closer to the action, which I unfortunately don't get to be at.
And I think that is great. I think there's a lot to get in as a mentor, and as Patrick mentioned, I've had the opportunity now to mentor folks with other backgrounds as well, whether that's technology, whether that's real estate, and those are areas that I personally have interest in outside of work, but because of these relationships, I've been able to benefit and somewhat provide some guidance as well, but have a mutually beneficial relationship. So I think going in with the expectations set out and leading with that commitment, but then being open to learn from each other, you know, making sure that there is a two-way communication, and most importantly, a safe space. I think that is incredibly important when we talk about mentorship. It's a process. It doesn't start on day one, because there's a lot of vulnerability that's required in the process, and if you don't set up a safe space for your mentee or your mentor to equally contribute, then it can be set up as a meeting, right, that you would do at work with a set agenda, but that's not what this is, right? This is a real relationship that will take its twists and turns, but I think treating it with the right mindset, that really takes it to the next level.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that, those things are super important, and it is a give and take, and it's also recognizing that both parties are investing a lot of time and energy into the relationships. So I appreciate those insights. Patrick and I had this conversation earlier this week. And so I'm going to start with him, and then I'm going to ask Aurelio to answer the same thing. Can you tell the audience what's the difference between mentorship and coaching, Patrick? And for Aurelio, what's the difference between mentorship and sponsorship? So we'll start with Patrick down there with mentorship and coaching.
You remember how I answered it?
Thank you.
So, to me, mentorship is a relationship. It's a dual relationship. It's, as a mentor, I see ourselves as guides, facilitators, and as a coach, we are really more intentional. We're driving performance. We're being, we're analyzing and being open around weaknesses and strengths. And I'll put it this way: a mentor gets you down a path. We're not telling you which path to go, but we help you get to a path. The coach helps you get through the path in making sure that you put the work in, you understand the barriers, or remove barriers for you to succeed.
Can a person be both at the same time to you?
Absolutely, because there is, where they cross over, it's being open and transparent about our performance. I think the mentor and coach have to have open dialogue. So I think that's where it all crosses over. And yes, you can be both. And you should be both.
And Aurelio is going to do mentorship and sponsorship.
Well, I think in mentorship you have both a formal mentorship and informal, where you do certain things that your mentee is going to want to follow. And for example, I was at an engagement at a large hospital 6 months ago. And those of you who know me, if I'm walking down the halls and I see a piece of paper, I pick it up. And that team wasn't used to seeing an executive pick up a piece of paper. Well, I think it's all of our jobs. It's not housekeeping's job. And everyone in that executive team in that particular hospital started picking up papers when they're walking down the halls. And the message here is that it's not a mentee or whatever, but they were influenced by the way that I was reacting as to the cleanliness of the facility. Because, when you walked into this hospital, it was clean. And when I go into a hospital, cleanliness is my number one thing that I pay attention to, because it says a lot about the culture and the commitment to the cleanliness and the safety and the infection rates and everything else. On a sponsorship, it's a much more formal way, and there's a time frame usually assigned to it. And in our industry, the organizations that we come from, those are very common to find you're going to sponsor somebody. And then you monitor that sponsorship as to see whether or not they are either growing, they're embracing some of the recommendations you're making, whether there's a fit in the organization. I can tell you at Memorial, they have a very strong culture, and it goes beyond mentorship. I think a lot of the folks there were sponsored by somebody that taught them what are the values that they felt very strong about. Not every organization has that. And the sponsorship, it is much more time sensitive, it is much more defined, where mentoring could be formal and informal.
Yeah, I think that's great. I know that, it's always helpful to have a sponsor in your organization, somebody to teach you the ropes, show you how things are done. This is the way, our organization does it, right? This is the way of the world here. But then to have somebody that, to Rahat's point, is that safe space for you to have open dialogue. And, we're in leadership, right? We're gonna have good days, we're gonna have bad days, we're gonna have successes, we're gonna have failures. And so to kind of debrief with your mentor and say, this was the result of this action. Next time, where do I need to work? What can I do better in that interaction next time? I think that's where your mentor becomes that safe space of, loved the approach on this part of it, could have done better over here, right? And so you know, you guys have talked about a lot about your organizations and culture and all of those things that lead to great leaders in your organizations, but what are your organizations doing for mentorship? Are there formal programs that your organization has? What is available to leaders, either up-and-coming leaders, early careers, mid-careers, people that are looking to do more in the organization? Is there a structure for that, and what does that look like? We'll start with Patrick.
And really, I think you know more than I do on this, or the folks in the room that work at Memorial. So I know we do have a formal mentorship program that's every 6 months, very well organized. I like how they do a post-survey, and then they do a pre-survey, and then do a post-survey is how it went. And I also really appreciate how they track the mentees of the program in seeing how they are, where they're at a year after the mentorship. Did they get a promotion? Did they take another job? You know, how are they still in the organization with a retention piece of turnover? So what I like about the mentorship program Memorial, they have measures to see how valuable it is to the organization. Or what else I missed?
And it also allows that individual to be exposed to all areas of the hospital. You'll be exposed to risk management, IT, finance, legal, and what is their role? Because it is a very complicated industry. I think what I always heard is after a nuclear power plant, healthcare is the most involved, most complicated industry in the country. Because there's so many regulations, and you can't, what I always say to people, you cannot lose somebody's life. You're dealing with people's lives. You're not dealing with breaking something. So to add what Patrick was saying is this is a very formal plan that's been in place for many, many years. And everyone that goes through that plan has exposure in all aspects of the organization. And by the end of that program, you have an understanding of what are the financial dynamics, what are the quality dynamics, what are the safety dynamics, and what is it that has to happen to guarantee that safe environment for patient care.
I'm going to ask Rahat to speak to HCA's program because I know they have a good one.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, we have a widespread development. I think development is a core of what we do because we understand that we're building the future pipeline of leadership, right? And as generations are phasing out, one generation's going out and one generation is coming in, it's important to continue to develop, not just put people in jobs, but give them the skills and give them the resources and relationships to tap into. So whether that's nursing, we have a program that we call Kamatua, and we pair our young emerging nurses that just come in, that we grow through our STAR RN programs or tech programs, and pair them with experienced nurses. We've had colleague networks that we talked a lot about at the last ACHE event, where we have folks that are representative from different minority groups, whether that's racial, gender, sexual orientation, gives them a safe space to get to know colleagues that resonate with similar values, interests, and gives them people to connect with and create mentoring relationships with. And then lastly, something that I'm a product of is an executive development program where we've had folks that have come through and become future operators, financial experts in the company, nursing officers, and we have the opportunity to go and just like you would in a college or university with alumni, get paired with folks that came through our program and learn from each other, and that goes across the country. It's not even just in your local market or in your state. You can be paired with mentors that are completely on the opposite coast, and it really gives you that widespread thinking of how things are done, but it all relates back to the core values that we talked about tonight of people, relationships, and getting to know each other and taking those steps collectively, mutually beneficial steps. So very proud to be a part of a company that is taking that at the center of what we do.
So, one thing that I've loved that I've seen a lot lately at Memorial and other organizations is when we pair mentee mentors that are in completely different areas of work, and then, to have that person tag along to all of the, I see some folks in the room nodding, tag them along to see all of the meetings that leader goes to, the department leader meetings, the LDI sessions, the LDM sessions with, highest level of leadership in the room, and I have absolutely loved that. I think there's nothing better to a mentee than being able to see the day-to-day of a department and how they work and how they run and how they contribute to the exact same goals that your department is working towards. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the patients, right? And so everybody is working towards the same goal. So I really love to see that, and if your organization does it, kudos to you all. I think it's awesome to see. So, you guys talked a little bit about the programs that exist in your organizations, and Patrick, you touched on this a little bit, so we'll go to Rahat first with this one. But how do you measure in your organization the effectiveness of the mentor-mentee relationships that come out of these types of programs? I know Patrick talked about we do a pre-survey, a post-survey, we monitor kind of the roles. What do you guys do?
Yeah, that's great. And we do similar, pre-assessments, post-assessment, mid-year assessments, and then also understanding, again, it goes back to that safe space where you can communicate year-round, right? And not just wait for a formal assessment at the end of the relationship or at the end of the tenure of the program, because usually at that point it's too difficult to go back and retroactively make a change, right? So I think delivering a consistent pace for feedback and again, allowing people to express vulnerably and authentically how they feel, and then also having a program that's willing to listen and adapt to the feedback. Because a lot of programs will seek feedback, very few will take that and initiate and adapt to it, especially during the course of it, right? And I think those that are most successful are seeking it continuously and then also putting it into effect for the current cohort of folks to reap benefits, not just the future. And then we're always thinking about the future, which is great, but we also only get one opportunity sometimes with certain folks, and if that is the experience that they're having, if there's anything that we can do to enhance it, and I feel like we have an obligation to consistently go and elevate our own experience day by day. So.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, especially as leaders, right? It's our duty to make sure that the energy that we're pouring into those that we're mentoring, or even just our team members in general, making sure that we're touching base and making sure that they're getting out of it what we think they're getting out of it, right? So we may think that we're being the greatest mentor of all time. Oh, that's a new one. That's GOAT too. You could be a GOAT, greatest of all time, or greatest mentor of all time. We can make it a thing. So I want to ask a question about, so what do you guys think, what's your opinion about what role does diversity, equity, and inclusion play into mentorship, and why is that so important to incorporate into mentorship programs, or just when you're seeking a mentor, maybe looking for someone with a different life experience, a different background, why is that so important? We'll start with Patrick and then go to Aurelio.
I think diversity inclusion is absolutely a key part of mentorship. And when I look at the role of diversity in the mentorship program, I'm not talking about just race and ethnicity, because I think in healthcare and the leadership in the hospitals, the complex environments we work in, I look at the diversity as it relates to the different areas that we work in, all the different disciplines, the nurses, the doctors, the techs, CPS. How do you embrace each of those areas so they can learn amongst another? Because in the end, it's all about connectivity and understanding what each other's do and how we impact one another in the entire ecosystem of healthcare. The other piece is, so you have diversity in not only in the disciplines and the positions, but you have different, and I think Rod brought up earlier, you have diversity in the roles.
Yeah.
Here we have different diversity, as in, you have professionals, you have managers, you have directors, you have executives. And I think the whole formal mentorship program is the one that links them all together, because we all have challenges, and they're all variable depending on what you do. I can tell you when I was my current mentor as a manager on a nursing floor, her challenges, to me, are much more complex than what I have to deal with every day. And she's not only working about the patient, but she's worrying about staffing, equipment, how I'm going to get through the day. I may be arguing with a physician about something, but what she's doing really is impacting the patient. And so I think understanding the different areas, especially the ones close to the patient, the ones that are behind the scenes. You know, I had a time in my career where I worked with EVS, food and nutrition, the ones that make a difference that you don't see. And when you go behind the scenes and see what they do a lot for the safety, the cleanliness, the ensuring our patients get the appropriate nutrients. And so it's a long-winded answer to Ashley's question, but you know, diversity is about the leadership levels, and it's about the disciplines that we all work together.
I concur, Patrick. I mean, that was a very comprehensive answer. I don't know if I can add to it.
Does it mean it's too long?
No, I mean, you hit all the points. You hit all the points, and you're correct. And how do you have all these different factors working together for a common objective? But it is complex. And then you add the variable of personalities and backgrounds, because we all came from a different background. Whether it be nationality, orientation, whatever. And we need to adjust to the changes that are going on in our society. I can tell you that at Memorial they took that very seriously, and we practice it, and it's important that we embrace what's going on in our cultures today.
Very, very important. So I have like a random question. Apparently, Patrick says. So have any of you up here ever had a mentor outside of healthcare, outside of the industry? Yeah.
I have, yeah. And I think it was probably an undergrad member that she was a career advisor, right? And she, once I graduated, ended up going into financial services. But she, during our time, you know, had come, she was an executive for Staples back in the day. She had a wide variety of experiences, and I would just go into her office sometimes and just talk, right? And she would listen, and that was the biggest thing for me. And I think I reflected years later. I was reading a book by Stephen Covey, who I'm sure many of you know, and he said in the book, you know, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I reflected back and I said, wow, you know, there were folks in my life in different periods that just were listening, were understanding, and then reacting, and then giving me advice, right? And that is the beauty. And it doesn't have to be people that are from our industry. It doesn't have to be people that are going to guide us to the next step of our career. It just has to be people that are willing, and then people that have a similar set of values to you. And I think if you can find those people, those are the true mentors that you want in your life. There's space for everything. There's space for sponsorships. There's space for other relationships. But when it comes to mentorship, when you're giving the commitment that it deserves, you want to find those folks that really are going to resonate everything that you're giving it and everything that they're doing.
Yeah, I think what you said, you know, in the beginning of the night with human connection, no matter the industry, yes, in healthcare, we're in the relationship business, right? We're taking care of patients every day. We're building relationships with our colleagues, other leaders. But ultimately, every industry is, right? We're all working with people day in, day out. And so I think developing relationships is kind of like the number one advice I always give students, right? Develop relationships first and everything else will fall into place. If you have the right people on your team, you know, you're making a difference and you're doing the right thing. So one follow-up question to that, what's the appropriate time to be looking for a mentor? Should you be looking for a mentor when you are looking for a new job? When's the right time to be looking for a mentor?
I think when we all come on a stage in our lives, career path that we're saying, you know, I've done this for a while, I want to make a change, and you seek somebody that's going to help you make that change. We're in such a large industry that there's a lot of opportunities, but how you go about making those changes? I.e., when Patrick came from Michigan, he had to have is it the best thing for my family? How do I go about it? I'm sure he called folks who had made that same move here. When Meredith came down from New York here, and she had need to know the market because it's totally different than New York. So I think from my perspective, I've only had healthcare mentors because that's the only industry I've ever been at. But I've been in several. I've been in the hospital business, I've been in the physician business, I've been in the managed care business, and each one of them, I looked for somebody that I respected, and I went after, can you teach me? And I've been very fortunate that those who put me under their wings and embraced me taught me and taught me the way to get there. And let me tell you, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. And a mentor will say, get up and do it. Don't do it again. But here's how you do it. Here's what happened. Okay, but you're gonna fall. And if you don't think you're gonna fall, you're gonna fall. And that's how you learn. Those are the hard lessons that you will never forget, and you will not repeat those mistakes. So, from my perspective, it has always been in healthcare, and I've always sought mentorship when I was going to a place that I had not been before.
I love that. Uncharted territory, but with some guidance, right? Anybody else want to take that one? Yeah.
I'll add something, not directly to that question, but a concept that it reminded me of that I heard introduced for the first time by somebody in our chapter here. She's an HCA executive, Ashley Bertino. She's been heavily involved in this chapter as well. And she introduced the concept to me of a personal board of directors. And I think when Patrick mentioned, or when Aurelia mentioned the thought process that maybe Patrick was going to, of potentially moving down here to uncharted territories, it made me think that is a concept that I've been trying to develop over the past few years, is building that personal board of directors of folks that really know me authentically, that I can go to and turn to in those circumstances. And some of them are mentors, but some of them are peers. Some of them are childhood best friends that know the ins and outs and know exactly when I'm going astray and when I'm being too bold and can reel you back in, right? And I think that is an important concept to understand and develop in all of our lives, is knowing where we stand with each relationship, but having folks that we can turn to that really know us at our core and are not afraid to give us honest feedback. And mentors will do that a degree if you build that vulnerable and trusting relationship with them. But having that personal board of directors is something that I would highly recommend to all.
My previous comment when I was talking about fighting with physicians, I want to take that back. It was a productive conversation. Lots of those.
You're being recorded.
But what the original question was related to when, and I would say now. If you all have career aspirations along your journey, you have mentors, you're gonna need them. Whether it's a career change, whether it's a challenge in what you're working today, it's a family challenge. I go to my mentors just like, how do you deal with kids? When my kids were growing up. But it's, or how do you balance things? How do you balance the strong work ethic that's expected to making sure you have time for the people that's important to you in your home? And so a good mentor will help you with both, because when you're in the heat of the everyday, the hustle bustle, especially those who have little kids like Tony, it's a blur. Your day's gone before you know it. And so taking a step back and finding somebody from a perspective that can share with you how they went through the process as well.
Yeah, that's great. I think we should always all be looking for mentorship in people, even if it's for a one conversation, right? One conversation that somebody's having with you that's like, wow, you're really changing my perspective on things. People are indirectly mentoring us no matter, what conversation we're having and where we are at in our career journey. So with that, we really want to open it up to questions from the audience. Charles has a question.
Since I may be the oldest person here, close to it. Understanding the mentor situation, years ago, there really wasn't the term mentor. There was somebody who you worked with or was friends with, and you really learned what that person was doing, learned how they did it. But even in a mentor program, there's the business part of it and then the personal part of it. So you're not mentoring the business part of it, but the personal part of it. In the personal part of it, that person may be 90% great, but you never want to copy that last 10%. Okay? So, and I've been there a few times. The 90% was good, that 10% I had to look the other way. But do you think that's also important on a personal level? Because besides business growth, a mentor is good for personal growth. And to be able to get that right person to see where they are, where that life took them to where they are today, and you want to be that same place.
Well, from my perspective, I've had those where personalities don't match, and you block it out of your mind. I say, I want to be successful like whoever, but the way he got up there is not the way I'm going to get up there. And I can tell you that I have never stepped over anybody to get ahead. And you don't need to step, you don't need to in anybody's life, and I've seen it a lot. Backstabbing, creating false statements for the benefit of personal benefit, and that's a no-no. That comes out in your personality. People know and people will talk. So to your answer, I block it out, but I take the good part.
Right, the good part.
No, I completely agree, and I think, again, there's a lot to learn. I think many of us here would agree that the essence is being lifelong learners, right? I think even somebody like Aurelia, who many refer to as a god of healthcare, right? He would tell you that there's always stuff to learn, right? But I think one thing, to Charles's point, of when you're benefiting from personal growth and you're seeking mentors and evaluating people's personalities, is you cannot let yourself go astray from your personal set of values, your core values, right? You're learning from other folks, you're being influenced by other folks, sometimes manipulated by other folks in good ways and bad, but you cannot go astray from who you are and what makes you it, what you entered that relationship with. That might evolve over time, and you might have greater insights into who you are, but don't let yourself compromise your core values for the cost of going and emulating somebody to 100% just because it worked for them.
I just want to add too is that when you talk about the personal growth with mentors, we talk about succession planning, development within the organization. I've had a few mentees that worked in my organization, but were looking outside, and they needed a safe space, a safe person to talk to, because sometimes in an organization you hit a compression in the role you would go into with somebody in it, and so. They needed to me, a mentor will talk about or support the person, whether they're in the organization or not. And I've had a couple where they actually left the organization and they've done pretty well. I also just recently had a mentee who started her own home care company. And our time together was, I had a background in working in home care 20 years ago, and we just talked about the steps of how to do that. It's up and running, and when we talk about success, to me that was a success, because for her she had a personal achievement outside of work into something she really aspired to do.
Yeah, I love that. I love all of those points. I think that Charles's question, the best experience that I ever got, and I think I don't know if it was Jenna, it might have been Jenna that told me. When I started my career with Memorial as the administrative fellow, somebody had told me the best thing that you're going to get to do in the next year is pick pieces from every single leader you encounter and make your own leadership style out of everything you loved about those people. And so I think that's very much speaks to mentorship too, right? Finding the things that you love about your mentors And again, we should have our personal board of directors that kind of keeps us true to who we are, that we're able to kind of pick those pieces and kind of put it together like a puzzle. Anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
Good evening, and thank you so much. Everything's been very insightful. My name is Indira Harris. I had a quick question. What are your thoughts on balance? I hear a lot from mentees, from colleagues, how it is difficult to maintain a certain level of work ethic and continue to advance, but also balance the other things that are important in their lives. What are your thoughts on that?
I will pass on that one because I don't have a balance. I really haven't. I hate to say this, but I never went to a Little League game. My first 2 kids, my wife would take them. I didn't go to all these things that we talk about today. So I will let the younger folks say
I think we all gotta find a hobby for a real So, well, one of the things is my father was a physician and he was always missing. You know, during a lot of our, I had 4 siblings, there's 4 of us, we had a lot of activities. There's always my mom, where's dad, he's on call, he's in the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the things that I've wanted purposely to do is try to get involved as much as I could with my kids' activities. I have 2 boys, twin boys, wasn't planned, these came out. Exhausting. But one of the things I really tried to do was, I coach every sport through elementary that they play. And I'm telling you, t-ball, soccer, football, etc. Made myself do it. And to the point where all the way through high school, I coached their AAU travel team, which is a lot of travel and coaching and practicing. And my peers were like, Patrick, why are you doing this? One, I want to spend as much time with my kids before they go to college. That was one. But 2, it was an outlet for me outside of work. Because when I was at practice, I wasn't thinking about work for those 2 hours. Now I go back like everyone else would do emails after. But for those 2 hours, I was thinking about what am I going to do with these kids? What's our game plan? What's our practice plan? But I can tell you, they knew if I was having a bad day at work because we were doing a lot of things. Coach, what's wrong with you? You have a bad day? You had a bad day. Back but again, when you get to the balance piece, you really do got to find a balance because this work is hard. What we do is brutal. I mean, really, you'll know, he's been for 4 decades doing this. I'm tired all the time, but you gotta find time to decompress. And I think what's made it worse in the last 15 years are these things. We talk about work-life balance. There's no balance because we're always connected. And so I call it just work-life integration. Because when you're at work, you deal with family things, right? Because you're always connected. And with your family, you're always dealing with work things because you're always connected. So it's up to us to be able to balance all that. So no more work-life balance. It's how we integrate our lives, our families, and our work today.
Mic drop. That was good, Stuff. Any final questions before we wrap up for the evening? We just really want to thank you all for being here tonight. And I think our panel did a wonderful job. Can you guys I love the stories. We talked about telling stories, and we sure did, team. Thank you guys so much for coming. Jenna's going to wrap us up here.
Thank you. Please do not forget to take your survey. I would be remiss if we did not thank Charles Felix for coordinating this. He works very closely with ACH International to get us all our credits and everything. And again, Elizabeth and the entire team here for hosting us. On behalf of the chapter, to thank our panelists, we will be making a donation to the Healthcare Leadership Fund with ACG. So we thank you. You guys were wonderful. And it's a true honor to have Aurelio Fernandez here tonight. So thank you.